All right, everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to install the base I designed for mounting your fish finder on one of the forward-facing rod holder positions. I came up with this idea when I got my kayak, and I'll post a link for the video below where I go over the reasons why. But the main reasons is these tracks on the Old Town Autopilot series are really far forward. So the closest I can get my fish finder is right here, but you know, my head will be way up here. So I'll go over it or I'll post a link to the other video below, and I go over all the reasons of why I want my fish finder right here. It allows me to still paddle the kayak if I ever need to. It requires no drilling of any additional holes. If you mount the fish finder here, you can't really use your forward-facing rod holder anyways. So that was just, those are some of the main reasons. But when I made my first one, I made it out of a piece of cutting board, and I had a lot of interest from people who were like, hey, where can I buy one? And I didn't want to hand make each one out of a piece of cutting board, but I bought a 3D printer, taught myself how to design, learned how to 3D print, and now this is the final design. It comes in orange and black, and I just print them as if anybody wants to order them. But I'm going to show you how to install the very first one. So the first thing you need to do is decide which side of the kayak you want to mount your fish finder on. And since the Old Town Autopilots come with forward-facing rod holder in the same spot on both sides, you get a choice of either side. I wanted mine on this side, on the right side, passenger side, whatever you want to call it. So you take your rod holder out. It's not hard. 3 screws. There is a gasket on there that might be stuck to the hull. You just gingerly pull it up. It'll come out in one piece so you can save it. And then you want to wash your kayak down with rubbing alcohol to make sure there's no adhesive or grease or anything on there. Then you want to run your wires up through the hole that's already there, so you don't have to drill any additional holes. So I've got those pulled through. Now what I did is I take the mount, the base, I put my wires through the hole, and I lay it out where it's going to go. I actually take the screws. These are the same screws that are used to hold the rod holder, so you don't need any additional hardware. And I actually install this on the boat just lightly. It's just really all you're trying to do is find out where the edges of this are. So I put 2 screws in like this, and then I'll zoom in and show you guys, but then I know exactly where this is going to sit when it's installed. And I take a piece of masking tape and I go around the edge so I'll know exactly where that's installed. So and the reason for wanting to know that is included in the kit is this piece of 3M very high bond double-sided tape cut to match the bottom of the fish finder mount. That works as a gasket to not let any water in, but it also increases the holding power of the base, because I wasn't sure if the 3 screws that come with the rod holder would be enough holding power for the fish finder mount, you know. So it just adds an additional amount of bond, and the base is very wide, so that also increases the amounts. Because when you have a big 7-inch fish finder on here, there is quite a bit of leverage on that if you bump it or move it around a lot. So you just don't want that coming loose, and this will help increase that. Plus, it's extra waterproof. So. All right, so this base works with the Scotty 1.5-inch ball mounted fish finder mount. I don't have design right now for any other kind of mounts, but I know that you can buy the Scotty 1.5-inch ball all by itself. I'll post a link below for an Amazon link. But with the Scotty fish finder mount, this one right here, this base comes with it. And if you take that ball out, Come on now. Take that ball out like this. It has this bolt in there, this Allen bolt, and in the bottom is a trapped nylock nut. So you take that bolt out, and then you can pull the ball out of the base. And all I did really was create a new base for this ball. So that ball goes in here, and it's got a hex on it. I'm not sure if that show up on the camera. And then this has a recessed hex receiver that perfectly fits it. And that goes down in there like that. And then on the back, you'll have a space for that nut, which is still in the bottom of this. So you got to get that out. I poke it out with the bolt. So then you have that nylock nut, and you put that in there like that. And then you just install that nut back in here. Just like that. And now you have a 1.5 inch ball for your fish finder. And I'm sure a 1.5 inch ball from Scotty works with the 1.5 inch ball for Ram, but I don't know what Ram's base looks like. I don't have one, and they're very expensive. So if anybody wants to send me one, and I'll design it and send it back to you. But right now, that's all I have. I'm not even sure if their balls, baseball will come out of will come out of the base here. So like the Scotty does. The Scotties just work perfectly because it's super strong, because it can't turn because of that hex base on it. The nut is perfectly trapped, not exposed, and it's very secure. So now we have that done. Next, I'm show you how to mount your gasket tape on here. All right, just to say it again, and I'll show it again because I have been touching the plastic, but it's always better when you're about to stick down some double-sided tape or silicone glue or whatever, is to wash the plastic with rubbing alcohol. That just gets up all the grease, oils from your fingers, any dirt, whatever, and then it evaporates very fast, so you don't have to wait forever for it to dry. But so I re-washed it. Okay, let that dry for a little bit while we get this on there. And it might be better if you install this before you run your wires, because now my wires are going to be in the way for this process. But I don't want to push them back in and then have to snake them back through. Because if I drop them down in this hole, I can't reach in there to grab them, and there's no access hatch. So I'm going to install it with the wires in, and I just added more work for myself. So if you do this, probably mount this piece of tape first. But now, so you can see I put the masking tape exactly where this needs to go. And I can see that my holes for the screws to mount this are centered in those spots. So something I'm going to do so that I don't lose this place, because once this touches, it's kind of stuck. You don't really get a second chance at peeling it back up and trying again. So you really want to make sure that you're fairly close to where you want to be. And how I do that is I take a piece of masking tape, like a big piece. Now this one's, of course, it's stuck on the roll. Why wouldn't it be for a video? Alright, so you take a piece of masking tape, like a large one, and I'm going to get my piece of tape right exactly where I want it, and I'm going to take down one edge like this, and what that's going to do is going to create a hinge like this. So this, when I peel this backing piece off, all I have to do is lay it back down, and it will be exactly where I wanted it, and I won't have to try and readjust it. So that's just a little trick that you can use. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. Wish me luck. So I'll peel off this backing tape here. Because the wires are on there, I got to rip it to get by it. just like that. And try not to touch it, it's very sticky. And then just slowly go from the side that's taped and feed it down. Just like that, and it lined up perfectly with my masking tape. So now that that is stuck, it will be stuck forever. You'd actually need some heat to get that back off of there probably. And now we can just remove all of our masking tape. And we want to leave this on until we're done installing the wires into the through-hole kit. There we go. Stick that down, really push it down. That way it'll be completely waterproof. All right. If you guys end up messing this up, just write me a note or something and I'll mail one to you at cost or something, $1 or $2. Well, I think these are actually about $3 because this stuff is kind of expensive, but $3 plus shipping if you mess it up. But just try not to mess it up and we won't have to worry about it. All right. And then now I'll show you how to install the through-hole kit. All right, when I designed the base, I designed it around a Wilderness Systems through-hole wiring kit. There's a couple different companies that make really good ones. Hobie makes one, Wilderness Systems, Yak Attack. But I went with the Wilderness Systems mainly just because it was a couple dollars cheaper. And it also had like the largest hole. And since we're not drilling a hole inside the kayak, I've decided, you know, the bigger the hole, the better. It's more universal because I'm not really sure what ends other fish finders have. All I have is mine to go off of, a Garmin. So if you really want to use a Hobie or a Yak Attack, I don't know, drop me a message. I'll see if I can get my hands on one and I'll just redesign the hole to fit that particular through-hole kit. But if you're just getting this from the start, just go ahead and order the Wilderness Systems and it'll work perfect. So in the kit, it comes with two housing things. One of those is normally used for your transducer. And it comes with a bunch of these little rubber things. So your transducer would go in one through a single hole rubber. But we're just going to use the one for the fish finder today. So I'm going to use the rubber with the 2 holes in it because for 2 wires. So now that we've picked the parts that we want, the very first step, and you have to do this in order, it's the order of operations, is you got to put the nut on the wires first. It's this little ring and it's got 2 little tabs. Finger tabs, and those have to face down. So if you don't put this on first, you'll get all the way done or go to all your wires and everything ready to go, and then you'll go to put the nut on and it won't be there. So you put that one on first, and then the next step is to feed the wires through the base. See, that's really nice to have that great big hole and nothing in the way. It also comes with this little rubber gasket that has a lip on it, and that lip needs to face upwards. So you feed the wires through that. And then on my fish finder, even though it has this gigantic hole, it still wasn't big enough to for the little ferrite, whatever these are called. I don't know, ferrite. Whatever. So I have to put this on my cable first, and if I had forgotten that, that's important because I want to pull out enough cable now to reach the back of my fish finder, but not have too much. Because once this is stuck down on there, we can't get to the back of it anymore. So we want to make sure that we've got the right amount out. And I think if I put the thing right about there, my fish finder will be right there. So I'm going to try to shoot for right here. And I'll install this all with this tape backing still on and make sure everything's perfect. And then I'll just unscrew this part, take it off, peel that off, cut it in half so it can come off of the wires, and then we'll be ready to stick it down permanent. But let's see how this works. So I want to put this rubber piece on next around the wires. And there's a little slit on the side. Sometimes it's not cut all the way through. You have to like tear it open a little bit. But that's what it's for. Feed the wires in from the sides. All right. Now I want to make sure that my wires are the same length, which they're really close, so that's good. Now you're ready for the little housing piece, and that slips over the wires, and then that slotted part goes, that rubber piece goes in that slotted part. So you push that down over, and it's really hard to get in there because that's what squishes the rubber around all the wires, makes it waterproof. So you gotta get that in there, and it'll seat all the way to the top. All right, so that's in there, nice and tight. Now we'll feed this rubber piece up over the threads, and that little lip will go around the outside of this piece. So we'll get it all the way up there, and we'll feed the threads through there. And now we'll get our little ring, and see, that's why we needed to put that ring on first, because now it's already on there. And it's really hard to get started on these threads sometimes because there's that big gap in the threads. But just keep pushing, put pressure on it, and slowly turn it, and then it'll find its home. So now it's on there and it's threading. Oh, I guess not. Okay. And so you want to tighten this up, and you want to make it really snug because that's what's going to make it waterproof, but you also don't want to really crank down on it because there is that big gap in the threaded part, and that gap will close together and it'll skip a thread and you'll mess up your thread. So just put it on there and get it snug, but don't over tighten it. And that feels pretty good to me. All right, now my wires feel long enough. I'm going to set this on here, and what I'm going to go ahead and do is screw it down. These are the screws that came out of the rod holder. So you don't need to buy any screws unless you want to reuse that rod holder, and then you'll have to buy some matching screws. So we'll get that screw in there. We haven't taken that tape off yet because I want to make sure that my fish finder, if I got enough cable sticking out. Okay. All snug down. And it's on there really tight. So, I mean, really, you wouldn't need to use that adhesive if you didn't want to. Or you could just skip that part and use silicone. That would give you some movement, play, and add adhesion. So, whichever way you want, it's going to come with that sticker anyway. And then, all right, so we'll put our fish finder on there. Tighten her down, and that's just about perfect. And then we'll see if my wires were the right length. Yeah, it looks perfect to me. Because I'll have plenty of play. I'm never really going to pull it any closer. But what you don't want is your wires to be so tight that they come straight up and then have to make a hard 90 into the back of your fish finder. But this also allows you to, like if I'm going to be paddling the kayak, I can lay this back like this. And the fish finder is still usable, but now it's out of the way of my paddling stroke. So that's really nice. But so there's plenty of wires for that. But where I'm going to be using it is as close to my leg as I can get it. My knees will be right about here, and you can just reach down and use it as much as you want. So that looks perfect to me. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take this back off, unscrew these, peel that sticker off, and then stick it down permanently. Alright, first off, I've got to peel off this backing sticker. Sometimes the hardest part is getting it started. This stuff is really sticky. right. I'll cut that. All right, so what we want to do is get it on here. Just start with one edge, kind of keep it at a little bit of an angle until you're ready to push her down. And then now she's down and it's stuck. So you're not going to get that back off easily. And then you screw it down permanently and you're done. Down. All right, and she's installed. That's it, everybody. Thanks for watching, and the links for all of for the base and the through-hole kit, and what else was there? Oh, and the fish finder mount. This is a Scotty 1.5 inch fish finder mount. I'll put a link down below. Let me know what you guys think.